Yoy!
I'm not going to worry about your level of concern.
Yoy and double yoy!
We talking about
Twitter.
Triple yoy!
Think of how stupid the average person is, and then realize half of them are stupider than that.
Quadruple yoy!
I can't stop winning. I can't stop winning.
This is a product of your journey, and your journey's not over yet. Woo!
We're going to unleash hell here in December.
We mock ourselves.
All right. It is a live and outside edition of What Shin's Talking About. The conversation about the Steelers' social media conversation, exposing all your hot and toxic takes. I'm Kyle Kreis. Next to me is Greg Benevent.
Hello.
Want to give a shout out to our newest subscriber, Mr. Hammer ZZ, who says, it's always a pleasure to hear your take on all things Steelers. Even I get into the negative BS at times, but I catch myself being talked off a ledge by guys like Yins. Great show. Thank you, Mr. Hammers.
Thank you. And we all do. I feel that sometimes myself.
We've got a new review from Sucka MC, who says, genuinely my favorite Steelers podcast. At the end of the day, there's only so much one could say about the team and their opponent on any given week, and all these shows deliver the current news. It boils down to about the same thing. The difference in what Jin's talking about, guys, do it with levity and a level head. The show is genuinely enjoyable. I can actually look forward to listening rather than tune in to another podcast paraphrasing the same article as the rest without much elaboration or insight. This show is fun, original, and yinzer to the core. Thank you, Sucka MC.
Thank you so much. I worry that I regurgitate too much of what I've read elsewhere, so that's very nice to hear.
Let me turn you up, shy guy.
Okay. Okay. I can eat the mic too if it helps.
All right. Let's enough caucus, I guess. Let's get into these hot and toxic takes. Let's just with a little recap here from at Ross_McCorkle, Ross McCorkle, how it started versus how it's going. The headline on June 1st. ESPN FPI gives Steelers over 30% chance to have a top 10 draft pick. Now the headline on 12/1, ESPN FPI gives Steelers nearly a 10% chance of making the Super Bowl. Wow, 6 months, and even the AI is now on the bandwagon, I guess.
Yeah, well, it took them long enough, too. I mean, some of the haters came around faster than the robots did.
Yeah, well, there's still some haters out there.
Oh, certainly, yes, living and cybernetic.
But we'll just get to Tomlin takes, man. You know, a week ago it was fire Tomlin, worst coach game of his career. Now at NFL on CBS, Mike Tomlin has still never had a losing season. I said this. Was it just last week? You know, somehow 18 no losing seasons has become kind of a joke, kind of a negative. They've spun it as a less than. But this is, besides the Super Bowl, this is what is going to define Mike Tomlin. And we should so blessed. 18 years, and then I guess 2 or 3 before that, before Tomlin came in.
Oh yeah, the year before. Yeah, the year before. The reason they were able to draft Ben was the last truly bad year.
So 2 decades of never having a losing season, always playing meaningful football, at least in December or more. Playoff appearances, except for a handful. We're truly blessed. We're truly, this is an era that they're going to look back on and be like, I can't believe Steeler fans were crappy during that era.
I hope they're able to look back on that era and say that it's an amazing accomplishment. I mean, to win like this is just extraordinary, and it's hard not to look at it, particularly so many of the teams that Steelers play, and look at the Jets, look at even the Broncos or the Chargers out here, how bad so many of those teams are for so long, and it's the Jaguars who were bad and are going to continue to be bad, it looks like, even after that number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, even the best of franchise. I'm thinking Niners don't have this kind of success. Packers, Title Town. Is that Packers? They don't, they have this kind
Cowboys.
of success. Cowboys definitely, right? So, just...
I hope all Steelers fans just heard that from beginning to end.
Thank you,
and understand what a treasure. How lucky you are. You're so lucky. You have no idea how lucky you are.
What a treasure.
So lucky.
So lucky, so lucky. Say it again. Maybe I should cut that right down. At DK Pittsburgh Sports. Despite coaching the Steelers for 18 seasons, Mike Tomlin's messaging has never gotten stale. That remains true during a season in which he may be doing some of his best coaching yet.
That's right.
Wow, just a week ago, it was, it went from the Ravens game, best coach ever, coach of the year. Then we went to the Browns game, and it was, let's fire this guy. And now we're back to... best coaching yet, never gotten stale. That's that would be news to a lot of the Yinzers on my timeline, I think.
Certainly, and I thought Tomlin dealt with that question very well yesterday at the press conference, where he essentially pointed out, hey, these guys' careers are so short, there's no way for my message to get stale, because the time it could get stale for somebody, well, another guy is in here. I mean, he said he wasn't worried about Cam, he was worried about Keanu Benton, and it makes sense. That guy's been there for 2 years. Yeah, I mean, it's still possible that the Thursday game against the Browns was Tomlin's worst coach game, because one had to be, but that in no way should mar what's been an incredible season.
He's a black and gold type of a guy.
He's the epitome of black and gold type of guy. Let's get off of Twitter for a second. Let's head over to Blue Sky. We've got the skeet from at Notre Sam at Blue Sky Social. Notre Sam. I think it's long past time that Mike Tomlin be part of the conversation on who is the greatest head coach in the history of the game. 18 straight seasons without a losing season. That is insane. Agree. And to think a reporter had the gall to ask him about his job security last season. Okay, all time. Let's see. So Tomlin is 12th all-time in wins, although he's done it in less seasons than anyone.
Yeah.
In two more seasons, if he sticks around, he could jump to 8th all-time. So if it's just by wins, I don't know if you can call him the greatest in history yet.
That would be a lot.
He would be, the end of this season, he will be tied for 7th in playoff appearances. That's 12 seasons.
Okay.
That ties Knoll. That surpasses Cowher.
Okay.
Although in playoff games, he will at least be tied for 14th just in playoff game appearances.
Okay.
He'll have at least 19. If we make it to the big dance, he could reach 21.
Wow.
Which Cowher has 21. Knoll has 24. That's just in
Okay.
specific games.
Yeah.
So, can we call him the greatest coach in Pittsburgh yet? Is it still too early?
I think we're way, way ahead of that. I don't think you can say he's the greatest coach in Pittsburgh history. I mean, a certain Hall of Famer and continuing the proud lineage, absolutely, and like actually making it a lineage and not just 2 coaches. It's not a lineage till it's 3 guys at least. So yes, he's absolutely upheld and built on the tradition, and that in and of itself is a Hall of Fame worthy accomplishment.
Where would you put him? Would you put him over Cowher yet? More years, more playoff seasons, but not necessarily more playoff games yet.
Yeah, and that's becoming a very interesting debate. Which one would you put over? I mean, I right now I'm probably still leaning Cowher, but it's tough because that's a real back and forth debate. Because you'd be like, okay, Tomlin did play all those years with Penn, but Cowher also played many years with great defenses, and they had to rebuild that team every single year. But man, Tomlin's had to do a lot of rebuilding on the fly too. I think I actually haven't thought about that yet, but that's a real like back and forth debate which of them is better, and mercifully we can make it. It's not definitive, which shows just how great these last two administrations have been.
Mike Tomlin's got to be in Coach of the Year conversation.
Thank you,
Certainly.
thank you. We got another skeet here from at Real F Sean on Blue Sky Social. F Sean, I'm glad the Pittsburgh media got over the Tomlin derangement syndrome. He's the most entertaining coach in the NFL. I don't want some young nerd with no personality coaching the Steelers. Sorry. Has the media? I mean, we saw. It seems it's very fickle. I don't know if I'm ready to claim the media is totally behind Tomlin right now.
No, and I'm certainly not willing to say that I'd much, who wouldn't want some young nerd to lead the team. I just want the guy that wins. It helps that Tomlin has this amazing personality that connects to players and bonds with them, but it's not like I just want him to coach because of the personality. He's very good at the job as well, and frankly, it seems like there's a real synergy between those two things, between Tomlin's personality, the way he carries himself, and the way that this team plays. But I certainly do not care about the he could be the most boring person in the world so long as he wins a lot of games. I mean, that's I'm okay with the boring nerds. Should you put down some wins, I'm glad to see Tomlin gets them too.
That is a reasonable expectation.
I agree, Coach. We're gonna miss him when he's gone. The tweet from at Mark Cabali. Hard Knocks really illustrating how much Mike Tomlin truly loves football. You see it every day at practice. Now the world is getting introduced to it. Oh, as soon as Hard Knocks airs, now everyone's on board. Cabali, Allen Saunders.
Those guys are on board before this for the most part. Saunders definitely was.
I don't know if you saw Hard Knocks yet.
I have not.
It was. We got some moments. It wasn't the all telling. We got a little bit of the self-evaluating defensive coaches.
Good.
That was nice. We saw Terrell Austin in the action.
Excellent.
I guess really the Hard Knocks moment that people keep coming back to is all week it seemed like he was telling Herbig, like, all right, this is you got to beat this Zeus Brown one-on-one, and and then in the game, of course, he pulled through, and that seemed to be the prophecy that Tomlin has.
Well, I think it's important to point out that you mentioned how this paints Tomlin in a very good light. Well, he also resisted it as much as a person could, which I think also speaks well to his character, both as a coach and as a person. It makes him look great, yes, and he didn't want to do it and was literally forced to.
It's coming down to, it was billed as, this is going to be a very competitive division. All these teams are going to have, well, Browns and Bengals are out of it for the most part. So the show is going to be Ravens, Steelers. And, so it is going to be the Tomlin show, even though we didn't have the losing season. We kind of gotten, swindled into this Hard Knock situation.
I mean, I think it was real easy to sell this a year ago as, hey, this is the first division ever where every team had a winning record. Wow, won't it be amazing if they all have to play each other at once? Well, that's what happens when you make predictions on what happens next year, this year. Yeah. It's the same thing. We're looking, I think this year the best division's the NFC North, and I imagine if they did the same thing this year, the same thing's going to happen next year. So, I mean, it's still, I know the Ravens and Browns fans were rightly complaining online about how little their teams were on this thing, but in however many episodes it is, there's going to be a lot of Lamar, there's going to be a lot of the Ravens. You're right, this story is eventually going to become Steelers Ravens, and with the Browns and Bengals it'll be like traditional Hard Knocks, and that look at how this is not working.
Yeah, look at how this is falling apart. All right, well, let's talk about my quarterback. He's the greatest. He's fantastic. Wherever there is danger, he'll be there. He's the ace. He's amazing. He's the strongest. He's the quickest. He's the best. Dangerous. 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 And Russ was very dangerous this week. Let's get to at David M. Todd. David Todd. Literally everything the doubters said about Russ has been proven wrong. Dude is playing some really good football. Hat tip. Did it take till December to figure this out? I almost think like the first game he played, it was like, oh yeah, this is the Russ era.
Well, I think there was always a reason in each game for why you couldn't say necessarily this was the Russ era. And what was the first game? It was what? It took the whole half to shake the rust off, considering the man didn't play a preseason game. That seemed reasonable. The Giants game, it was a lot of back and forth. But yeah, and I think the Browns game was also a big step back in terms of, hey, it's the Russ era. But and even the Ravens game was too, an extent, but that's because that defense played very well in that game. But yeah, this was the one where if this is really what the Steelers offense can be, and every time somebody says something positive about the Steelers offensive performance, they do have to mention just how bad that Bengals defense was, then yes, this is absolutely the Russ era, and it seems like we're entering into it.
In fact, we've even let's turn up the heat on some of these takes.
He's heating up.
We've got at Mark Madden X, Mark Madden. Russ is brilliant. Team MVP, just amazing. Wow. I mean, he was on the Russ bandwagon, you know, to kind of to troll the Fields lovers, but now he's on Russ is brilliant. Team MVP. I mean, when Madden has come around, I had not since Sid Crosby have I seen this positive of a sentiment from Mark Madden.
I mean, it's very possible that I could see them voting Russ team MVP. Sure, I mean they voted him captain before he ever took a snap. So I mean, the player is certainly beloved inside the locker room and was from moments before he's arriving. And we saw it all summer, but it's something else to see it entirely on the field.
Everybody else gets a little tight.
Yeah, not Russ, staying loose out there. Well, speaking of team MVP, at JD Chosen 77, JD says Steelers MVP power rankings. A new stat has entered the chat here. Steelers MVP power rankings. Number 1, Cam Hayward. Number 2, TJ Watt. Number 3, Chris Boswell. Number 4, Justin Fields. Number 5, Russell Wilson. Not exactly my power rankings, maybe. Where would you...
Number one's not crazy. I mean, having Cam as this team's MVP isn't nuts at all. I mean, he's having one of his best seasons ever, and he's 35 years old, and he's a defensive lineman. I mean, it's something else entirely for the quarterback to be at that age and doing well versus the interior defensive lineman. I mean, it's still just slamming dudes and taking over games, as he did at times on Sunday, even as, you know, challenging an environment as that was. But yeah, I mean, I think, you know, I'm not doing the power rankings of the team MVP because that seems like an amazing way to waste your time. But 4 or 5 of those, I mean, Fields is certainly well liked in that locker room too. But you know, 1, 2, 3, and 5, I think that's not crazy if you were to map that out. And please don't.
It's got to be. I mean, you know, despite even TJ having some off weeks, it's got to be TJ. I could make the case for Boswell,
certainly,
or Russ. I could see. You know, it's a team voted award.
Yeah,
right? Which
is probably why the kicker, I mean, as much as they like him and as good a dude he is, just isn't in every meeting. It isn't always around. So I could see it's, you know, it's particularly, I could see it being the kicker if it was like a team that was not that good, but this is a good team. So it's probably not going to be the kicker.
More love from the national media at Real Skip Bayless. Skip Bayless. With Russ throwing for 414 yards at Cincy, the Steelers clearly look like a team capable of winning the AFC, not just the North. How long will until this sentiment goes away if we don't put up 400 yards against Cleveland on Sunday?
Well, I mean, 2 things. One, that as Kyle thankfully did not do in his intonation, that tweet was written entirely in capital letters, and which I appreciate Kyle not doing that. And 2, anytime I read something from Skip Bayless, I just assume the context is to troll Cowboy fans. So I imagine we might get a lot of Skip Bayless saying how great the Steelers are for that specific reason.
Well, hey, the bandwagon is full on. Let's get a local take. Forget about team MVP. At the Pony Express, Andrew Filipponi, you can make the case that Russell Wilson is more deserving of the MVP than Lamar Jackson. Okay, does that mean he should be in the conversation for league MVP?
No, I mean it's I appreciate Russ, but Russ has played 3 or 4 games. And also I looked at the odds for league MVP just because I was procrastinating at work, and they might be too sensitive to recent games because it's Lamar at plus 700 and Josh Allen at minus 200, which I think is determined entirely by the 2 of the last 3 Sundays. But what I forget about Filipponi every now and then is that like he's like like Captain Jack Sparrow in the Pirates movies. Like, so he'll troll your guys and their guys. Like, so I think this is definitely him trolling Ravens fans, which he also enjoys, particularly when the Steelers win.
It's my quarterback.
All right, okay. I'll put well, he's got to be. He can't be the same thing with TJ. It's like, can you not be the team MVP, but then be considered for one of these league awards? Like,
yes,
defense. Could he be Defensive Player of the Year without being the Steelers team MVP? TJ?
Absolutely, because it's the voting bodies. The voting body for league. I forget who it is for Player of the Year, but it's all those weird media people that got swayed by PFF. Whereas the team MVP is just voted by the team. I mean, it's just the guys in the room.
So it wouldn't be a weird look at all to be like, okay, Russ isn't the team MVP, but he's up for the league MVP.
Well, I mean, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I find it very hard to believe I doubt that James Harrison, was the team's MVP the year he won Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, I haven't looked, but maybe he was, but I doubt it.
Okay.
But,
was it AB? Would it have been AB?
I mean, that might have been. I don't know. Yeah, I think that's too early for AB. Maybe it was Harrison, but still, it's just entirely different voting bodies. I mean, it's. I couldn't name a team MVP on another team ever. Like I could guess at it because it's the guy I've heard of, but I have no clue.
We're not looking for individual awards.
Stats are often for losers,
right? It's a loser awards. But if you want to make the case for Russ, at Real Abester, Honest Abe, Russell Wilson 2024 rankings: yards per game 2nd, touchdowns per game 8th, yards per pass thrown 2nd,
wow,
quarterback rating 5th, interceptions thrown 32nd, pass attempts per game 14th. So we're not even passing. Besides this past week where we came out throwing, we haven't even been passing. But
right,
the stats are there, I guess.
Well, I mean, the stats are there. I mean, one that also shows just how few games and plays that Russ has been out there for, and he's that low in interceptions even after it's I'm still sour grapes 96 hours later or whatever. That interception shouldn't have counted. It shouldn't have happened on Sunday. So that's, even you add in something like that, and it's still great numbers.
At Bigfoot's 0169 Jitterbug, Mr. Optimistic, aka the Clown Gatekeeper. Hey, do the Steelers still need a number 2 wide receiver, or is it okay if the QB spreads the ball around to 10 different receivers? Stop your friggin' worrying. Well, we can't add to the room at this point. But Russ did. Was this? I guess this was the most prolific that Russ has gotten the ball out.
I would think.
There were some of those games we're complaining how Van Calvin and the rest of them got 1-2 targets. The rest went to Pickens. You think this is just a 1 week outlier, or is this going to be the situation through all December, January?
Hopefully it's the situation. Hopefully those other guys are warming up to it. I worry it's just one game because this defense was that bad. And I also worry about it a bit just because, Calvin is in the concussion protocol. By the time you see this, hopefully he's come out of it. And hopefully he's healed or recovered or whatever the proper word is. But they're going to need to spread the ball around more to win, but they've shown they can do that. Pat looked good. That Van Jefferson was there when they needed him. And I think that's what you're looking for from these other receivers. Are you there when they need you? When Russ knew that blitz was coming and hit Van Jefferson made the play. That's what the number 2 wide receiver needs to do. They don't necessarily need to carry the team when 4 guys on the other team are jumping on George, quite literally. They just need to be able to make those plays when it comes to them.
To me, it's something to conquer.
I agree. We'll see. Final word on Russ. At Jason_Shetler, Jason Shetler. If you were the Steelers general manager, what type of contract would you offer Russell Wilson to re-sign for? I think the starting conversation is going to be at least 30 a year.
Yeah.
I think. I don't know. Could we do 2 years, 3 years? I could see 2 years. 70, 30 this year with an option for 40 next year or something. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that all sounds good because, one, I haven't looked at it because, two, it's not my money, and two, they have plenty of money. It's Omar has managed this very well. They're going to be able to pay Russ for next year regardless of what happens the rest of the season. Moreover, they'll be able to do so and still address the team's needs. So, yeah, I'm not stressing about Russ's contract, and the more difficult his contract is, the better this team is done.
The other conversation is Russ going to give a hometown deal, even though he's only been hometown now for 7 months or so? What I don't know. Is he going to be looking for the money? We say that all these players. Oh, they can't need any more money. Well, look at Cam. Cam wanted another contract. So if anyone was given the hometown deal, it was him. But I couldn't see Russ saying, "Oh yeah, I'll just do 20 mil so we can pay Dan Moore, Fields, I don't know.
Find another receiver at, I imagine it'd be something, find another cornerback, that kind of thing. I mean, I think there's a big difference. I look at it necessarily not as like, hey, who can they give the hometown discount? It's what can you give this player so that like it shows they're being taken care of without impacting the team's buying power. And I think that's more where the conversation is, because like this is weird, a player of Russ's ability on a $1 million contract. That's just bizarre. That's a situation that has to be explained. So it has to be something befitting somebody with this resume and this talent and this proven result. So I think that's where it is. You want a contract that's deserved and befitting the player, but not prohibitive.
Let's just briefly talk.
These are the new leads. These are the Glengarry leads.
Arthur Smith tweets, starting with @Alex_Kazora, Alex Kazora. With their 44-point performance Sunday, the Steelers have officially cracked the top 10 NFL scoring offenses. They ranked 10th, averaging 24.7 points per game, the best rank since 2018.
Wow.
Steelers now ahead of the Chiefs in points per game. So yeah, we haven't seen that in a long time.
No.
Now, I mean, averaging 24.7, but defense has gotten some of those points, so it's not necessarily strictly offense stat, I don't believe. Right?
No, and the defense certainly sets them up. The defense has played very well, but that's where you want to be. I mean, you mentioned the Chiefs. That's absolutely what I would have said about them too. Their defense sets up that offense quite a bit. That is a staggering number. And sure, it's just one game, but it's one game that's built upon a foundation of the games that came before it.
If you said, it's like how these narratives change. It's like, oh, the worst red zone team in the NFL. Yeah, okay, but we're 10th in scoring. I mean,
they do a lot of scoring outside of the red zone.
So, it's like, what would you rather have? Would you rather be a great red zone team, middle of the pack scoring, or can we be elite scoring and then deal with this? Red zone wasn't a big deal this past time, I guess.
No, they were barely in it. I think they were in it twice and they scored. Red zone was an issue before that, but even when they had the red zone issues, as we said on here, as others said too, they were moving the ball. I mean, it's not like they were getting bogged down at their own 40. They were getting inside the 20 and they were just settling for field goals, but you settle for a lot of field goals and that literally adds up.
It does. That's why Boswell is his team MVP consideration at this point. I mean, he's on pace for most field goals in an NFL season. So
right.
If that doesn't get you in the conversation. One more thing on the offense from @Adam Crowley. Adam Crowley. Would you sign Najee Harris to a Joe Mixon type deal at the end of the season? 3 years, $25 million contract. Scott Dorn would. I wouldn't. I think 25 is probably the floor, if not more.
Yeah, I mean, I would sign that deal because that seems very low. I would definitely sign that. I don't think they're going to. I think they're going to try and get someone else in the draft and then run more of the offense through Jalen. But Najee has really shown something, really in his whole career, but certainly in the last, like so many other players, once Russ came to power.
I think it would be at least 330 if we wanted to keep him.
Yeah,
$10 million a year.
I agree with you. I don't think Najee's going to stick around that because somebody's going to pay him a lot of money to run the entire offense through him. I mean, they might find that he's not necessarily Derrick Henry or Saquon, but they will be able to get more. They will run more out of him. They'll spend more money than maybe the Steelers did.
I guess this is still offensive talk. It's receivers I am Mike Mitchell. Mike Mitchell. He's talking to Bob Labriola. Well, Bob, I can tell you the obvious difference between Josh Allen appearing to show finger guns and JP. I can tell you the obvious difference, but some people won't like that truth because it's ugly. The stigma could not be more clear in the two pictures. It's sad. I was thinking about this since the game Sunday, and it's just like, why is this the unsport? Finger guns. I just watched the new Star Wars property, and it opens with this big gun battle, and with pirates getting blown up and everything. It's just like, what? I don't understand how this is the unsportsmanlike penalty. The finger guns. We do a salute to service with the military. Guess what? Those guys play with guns, and. If we can't change gun laws, if that doesn't change, gun crime, what's the finger? The finger pointing doesn't influence anything more either. I don't, and we hear how Tomlin encourages trash talk, and Arthur Smith is definitely a trash talker. Isn't that just as unsportsman as a conduct as a finger gun pointing? Come on. Can I get down and do a bazooka G.I. Joe style? The more I think about this, I'm just like, come on. This is just not the way to enforce sportsmanship. If that's what the case here is.
No, and I honestly thought the penalty was long before that. I didn't see the finger guns until later. I thought the penalty was for the high stepping in the end zone after catching a pass at like the 7 or 8 or wherever they were. I thought that was the unsportsmanlike penalty. I think this is also the reputation precedes George. Just half hour, 40 minutes earlier, he dropped the ball on the guy, which is always going to be unsportsmanlike conduct and absolutely should be. That's ridiculous. When I heard it was the finger guns thing, I understood why they called the penalty, but it's like so many other things in our society. We're doing it for the appearance versus the what's actually matters. I understood it, but it's the NFL trying to protect the shield, and as usual, doing a roundabout way of doing so.
What if he was like, it was a Nerf gun, it was a Super Soaker or something, or it was a it was a pew pew, it was Darth Vader stormtrooper type of laser. I don't, it's just like. At the time, I thought that was going to be more important.
Yeah, the fact that I think that this conversation, there'd be a lot more of this conversation had this cost the Steelers the game, which I think is the one thing I do take away from the George problem, unsportsmanlike and all this, that eventually this could cost the Steelers a game. Whether, there's no reason to do any of that celebrating after a catch that takes you down at the 6.
I'm starting to accept this year that referee plays are just a part of the game now. You can't go back and say, oh, if that wasn't called, it would have turned around the game. You just have to. It's like, it's like the waves in the ocean. It's something you kind of have to just deal with and accept that it's going to happen. And because it seems like especially with games like the Chiefs, it seems like it's every week. And
well, the important thing is we don't make the refs full time. That would be some kind of issue. I don't know if that would solve things. I know that's the go-to for saying what's bad with officiating. I don't know if that would solve things. I know a lot of people who have full-time jobs who are very bad at them. But yeah.
I want to make more replay and more computers. We're doing it quicker, and if the goal is to get the call right, I don't mind waiting around a little bit more for another look at the replay. And I think that on everything. I think that on pass interference. I think that on all these plays that clock stuff that we can't we can't challenge that or we can't challenge that. Well, why not? Let's get it right. Let's make it about getting right.
Replaying pass interference was a disaster, though, and I'm not just saying that as a fan of the team that had the first challenge pass interference that went against them and cost them the game. The Masons' first game against Seattle. I understand trying to get it right, but that if they bring it back, they'd have to bring it back differently than that because that was a nightmare.
Shouldn't they be able to get it quicker from the they're doing these more deferred what do they call it, booth review,
booth assist.
Booth assist, like, okay, well, we're all seeing it in real time, and can't they just call down and be like, we're going to call that back? I don't know. The more I don't know. Let's move on to the O-line at Mark Cabali. Many of the Steelers. Many of Dan Moore's teammates joined in saying, back up the Brinks truck following Moore's performance against the Bengals and Trey Hendrickson.
Mm-hmm.
The Brinks truck isn't backing up to Water Street, I can assure you that. When you pick 14th and 20 overall tackle back-to-back years, Moore will be an unrestricted free agent in March.
Mm-hmm.
No change in that. No change in that at all. Of opinion that Moore's gone. I mean, that's
Of course. Yeah, he's been gone since the moment they drafted Fautanu. He's played very well, and the team has needed him to play very well. And he did a great job against Henriksen, and he'll get a lot of money somewhere else. But the truth is, he always, as so many others do, he also struggled with Garrett, and that was just 10 days ago. And someone else will back up the Brinks truck for him. My guess is someone that doesn't play Cleveland twice a year.
He will be. I mean, he's not. Who was the 7th rounder who went to?
Kelvin Beachum.
You know, he's better pedigree than Kelvin Beachum, or
Certainly.
was he? I mean,
well, no,
Beachum went to a Pro Bowl, didn't he?
Oh, yeah, and Beachum is still playing. Beachum is an incredible story, and one that Tomlin trots out multiple times to show how you can be a self-made man and have an incredible career. And the irony is Dan Moore having the pedigree of a 4th-round draft pick, as much as he's built himself into something good, is makes it less of an inspiring story than Kelvin Beachum, since Beachum came from the 7th round.
Okay, let's talk defense. We got defense to talk about. Never get to at Mark Madden X. Mark Madden coming around on the defense. Steelers defense has allowed yards and points, but made some plays, and that wins. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like who cares? We were a top 4 defense before this past week. I didn't see what it was this week.
I'm sure it dropped.
But you know, it's almost like, would you rather have the splash plays or just the statistical dominance? You know, like the 2008 had statistical dominance. This season, it's more about the splash and the turnovers, I guess.
Well, there's no such thing as that kind of statistical dominance anymore, not on defense. I thought this game was how a way they've talked about the Steelers' offense so much, in that, you know, they can beat you any way you want to play. Well, this was the defense doing that. This is what modern defense looks like on teams that don't have as good a defense when they're playing teams that don't have as good an offense as Cincinnati does. It's run up and down the field, give up a bunch of yards, and hope that you'll make enough turnovers and splash on defense to win. That's how lesser defenses have to play regular teams, and it's how a very good defense had to play a very good offense.
And by Josh Carney. TJ Watt and Cameron Hayward had 5 pressures each against the Bengals on Sunday. Hayward finds himself on pace for a career high in pressures.
Amazing.
He had 62 in 2017 and 2020. Currently sits at 43. This goes back, you know, this is a career year, you know, maybe not sack-wise, but pressure-wise. There's been pressures without the sacks.
Yes.
And, you know, half the time, you know, they got the pass off, some with success, but
certainly,
I mean, you can't have, you can't get sacks without pressure.
No, and it's not like Cameron Hayward's position in this defense is necessarily, okay, you have to get pressure on every play. That's a lot of times not why he's there, but he is doing it anyway because he's been that dominant. I mean, I all the stats you hear, I keep coming back to that word about what Cam has been this year, dominant.
Can we hologram Joe Green out there?
Right, it's like the Joe Green hologram, basically. Pro Bowl? I mean, yeah.
I would be surprised if that didn't happen. I mean, it's just because it's, because so many guys drop out. I would imagine that Cam's going to be towards the top of the upper echelon of when other dudes drop out. I mean, I don't know. I haven't looked at the ratings and votings for that either, because that also does not interest me. But certainly he's playing that way.
I think the fan vote so far had TJ on top of his category, Boswell on top of his category, and
I think Dante Jackson was third. I saw, and I was like, okay, a lot of interceptions. That's how that happens.
How about at DVE Mike Pursuta? Defense won't puff its chest after 31 points against and the penalties, but defensive hands were in the pile the way they had to be versus combustible offense. 3 defensive series after blocked field goal resulted in red zone field goal against, tip pick, and fumble return touchdown. As significant a stretch as any.
Right.
Yeah, it's the splash plays. In years past, Tomlin's talked about splash. We want more splash. We want more splash. Now we got the splash. For a while, we had the points. Now, if if we merge the two together, because as we said earlier in the season, we were like on pace to be the 14th best defense in franchise history.
Mm-hmm.
That's after the Browns and Bengals, that's probably dropped a little. A lot of the great teams actually even got tighter after week 10.
Mm-hmm.
So hey, we've got the chance. Eagles, Chiefs, Ravens. So that we could be, geez, imagine top 10 offense, top 10 defense running into the playoffs.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of the better, more balanced teams are. But, those other defenses played an entirely different era. This era is so much offense-based, even in a year that's down for offense and relative statistics. But yes, this is what defense is now. You can dominate if you can, but if you get those turnovers while the good offenses are moving up and down the field, that too is a success.
That is true. Okay, next is the tweet. Oh, I meant to do the research on this. At Steel City 55, TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig, Preston Smith. That's the best outside linebacker core I think I've ever seen on a roster. And I wanted to go back and, like the year that there was Joey Porter and Harrison didn't even get on the field. Can you count that? That was like before the rise of Harrison. Can you include that in the best linebacker cores? What about when it was? I don't know.
I would say Harrison and Woodley at the Super Bowl 43 one. That's when Woodley set the record for most consecutive playoff games with a sack, breaking his own record from the week before.
Yeah, that's a good argument there too. Well, it's and it hasn't been healthy. It's not like it's been just like teeing off with these four guys. Plus,
right.
Preston Smith just got into town,
but making an impact already.
Yeah, maybe in the future we could look back and say, when Highsmith and Herbig are multiple Pro Bowlers, we could look back and say,
yeah. And speaking of guys, it may be tough to keep them years down the line, but for now, this is a very, very good problem to have, and what a unique thing to have three outside linebackers out there. I'm fascinated to see how they deploy that in the games to come.
Well, let's talk about secondary. At Don Cheed 54, Donnie Football. I think cornerback is becoming a first-round need for the Steelers. Of course, after Joey Porter's worst penalized game. But after this season, only Porter, Trice, and Beanie Bishop are under contract, I think. So, but I'd give the money to Dante Jackson.
I'd like to keep Jackson around.
And if I don't know, Cam Sutton is he playing on the cheap now? I wouldn't mind. Bringing him back unless he's trying to get the big bucks elsewhere.
He's certainly playing on the cheap. It's going to be one of the needs going into the draft because it's even with all those guys, you still need new young blood coming in. I would imagine the first thought in the draft is either defensive line, the guy that will eventually replace Cam, and or wide receiver. But cornerback is certainly up there too.
If you could give the money to, let's say, Dante Jackson or a free agent receiver like a T. Higgins.
That's entirely different levels of money. Higgins is going to get something so much huger than what Dante Jackson would. But it's not impossible that someone throws a lot of money at Dante Jackson. I'm sure they'd like to sign Dante Jackson. I was thinking about that when I saw the highlights the Monday night, and at least one of those Browns touchdowns where they ran away from the Broncos was a guy absolutely being not covered by Levi Wallace.
While we're here in the secondary, at Barstool Yinzers, Minka gets paid $73 million to make sure guys are touchdown after big catches, runs. More Minka hate. We talked a little bit about it on Sunday. I went back and watched about 3/4 of the All-22 specifically to see like what is Minka up to back there, And sometimes they had him playing closer to the box. Sometimes they had him way back in center field. The only big knock I would say on Minka is that he doesn't have the speed. The running back that Chase was his name.
Chase Brown. What a good name for a running back.
He was able to run away from Minka on some of those big runs, and so he doesn't have that kind of speed. But otherwise, other than that, I didn't see Minka, kind of being anything less than he's usually being. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think also, what little I know of what happened on Hard Knocks the other night was they got Tomlin saying, hey, we basically have to keep Burrow guessing the entire game. And a big way that you're going to keep somebody guessing is by moving Minka around as much as possible. If Joe guessed, he guessed right a lot of times, but someone with his talent and his receivers is going to guess properly. But I think as much as they can get him guessing, moving Minka around is one really big way to do so.
it is a pebble in my shoe.
Yeah, I'm not worried about Minka stuff yet. He's under contract, right? No chance to cut him to save
Oh God,
money.
no. This team with as much money as this team has, and then it's as soon as you cut them, you got to bring someone else. And again, it's not Madden. These are people.
Yeah.
They know each other. It's a people business. The team has never done that where they cut a great player in hopes of bringing another one. This isn't baseball. This isn't Moneyball.
And if you watched Hard Knocks, Minka was brought into the coaching room with the defensive coaches, so he's on that kind of level. I don't know if
Yes.
that's invited into or he's just on his own.
Well, in a team that didn't have Cam or TJ, he would be captain. I think that's pretty definitive.
One last thing on the defense at Mic'd Up Sports 1, Mike Nicastro. A sneaky huge part of this win is that I bet George Burrow doesn't play in week 18. That makes sense to me. Why would you put him out there to get hurt, suffer a knee injury that could cost him 12 months? I mean, even the rest of the way, they're out of it, right? I don't know.
I mean, as someone that clicked on the Inquirer the rest of this week just to, look at the sad Bengals news, they do have things in ways the Bengals can make the playoffs. But as you might imagine, it involves a lot of Denver gets hit by a meteor. Like there's so much weirdness that, to get at, 8-9 losses at this point, they would get through there. But I mean, another loss or two, and I'm sure they have other games in the division coming up. I think they have to play the Ravens again, right? And probably someone else. So another loss or so I can see getting to that point. But yeah, I mean, I certainly hope he doesn't play, but it makes sense. I mean, as much as we talk about this for the Steelers, like, oh, these games, we've never had to think about this, these meaningless games. That would be the saddest thing to be like, hey, you're too good a player, please don't play.
I mean, I could see them, both because Jamar Chase is up for a contract and T.
Higgins is basically out the door.
So, I could see them all being like, you know what? I don't want to. I'm going to take a early vacation on
right,
week 18.
Exactly.
And so if that comes down to seeding, although I think it's going to be super hard. We're 3 games behind Kansas City, 2 games behind Buffalo. I don't know. I don't know if the 1 seed is within reach.
I think as soon as they lost the game to the Browns, the 1 seed became out of reach.
So, if all right, say the division is sewn up week 18, but you could get the difference between a 2 and a 3 seed. What how important is that in the scheme of things, or is it worth resting some of our starters as well?
I mean, just going by Tomlin's history, he doesn't like to rest the guys. I mean, this would be the first time that he's done it, and then having this thing about like, hey, we could get a slightly better seed, where it's not just like, okay, since we've gone to 7, they have to win this week to get in. I could see him maybe resting guys by the 4th or something. But I think I think he would want them with that edge of like, okay, we're preparing. It's just another week. Now it's the playoffs. We're building this thing versus like, all right, take your foot off the pedal. That very much does not feel like his personality.
We're going to live that life.
Mm-hmm. Right? They're going to live that life. All right. Well, I think the band is... Oh, we got a Renegade Week coming up here. All right. One last thing, a little odds and ends here from at Steelers, Pittsburgh Steelers on set. Troy Polamalu and The Rock. I guess Troy had a little part in Moana 2. So, I mean, that'd be a nice little tag team. You think Troy still has it to get in the wrestling ring to do some high-flying antics?
I mean, my first thought was this, like, wow, this is great that Troy's spending time with this college linebacker that never made it to the pros. But yeah, I mean, if there was ever anyone that could fly off of the top turnbuckle, I imagine it could be Troy Polamalu.
That would be not WrestleMania. That would be in March. Royal Rumble would be in January. That might be
That's true.
That might be a fun way to get Steelers pumped up for the.
Oh, I mean, just imagine. I mean, Steelers fan J.R. Ross. Oh my God, that's Troy Polamalu's music. I mean, what a moment that would be.
If they were trying to get Mario Lopez in the ring, he's plus 50. Troy, even though Troy's starting to look it, but he's not even 45, right?
No, although I do have to say, as much as I love seeing Troy on TV, I do not need to see gray in that hair in them Head and Shoulders commercials.
Yeah,
I don't need that. Like, I'm glad to see Troy. You can dye that. I don't care. I need the fantasy.
Yeah, Just for Men. Pick up a new sponsorship here.
I know you'd have to get a lot of it. I seen that hair, but still.
that's what we've been talking about.
That is what we've been talking about today. Our first show here outside. We're trying to do it live.
Trying new things.
We'll see if this works or not.
Unique things.
Maybe we can find maybe we'll find, I don't know. Will we find a home? We'll see how this sounds. All right. You can keep the conversation going on social media. I'm on pretty much all of them, but I'm looking at Twitter. I'm looking at Blue Sky. Blue Sky's starting to come around with some Steelers content. Threads doesn't seem to be the place. TikTok is, I'm on there. I'm seeing Denny is getting like 3,000 likes on his TikToks.
Good
now.
for him.
Yeah, whatever. Okay. But I'm Kyle Kreis on all those platforms, not putting up the amount of content that other Steeler accounts are, because I have things to do. You can't tell from the video because it doesn't look like I've shaved this quarter, but how about you, Greg, on social media?
Alas, you can find me on Instagram at Greg Benevent, B as in boy, E-N-E, V as in Victor, E-N-T.
We're actually, I'm heading back I'm heading to the 724. I'm heading back to Fayette County, so I think we're gonna have to take a week off. First time in show history.
Yes,
we can have a week off, but we can do it once. I know it's not during hell raising season, but I think we'll be all right. I think it's after the Browns win, let's take a vacation from Toxic Takes, maybe.
Okay, if anyone's earned it, Kyle, it's you.
And then we'll come back hard for Christmas. I think I've got some good ideas for a nice Christmas episode.
Okay,
try to get that out Christmas Day before the Chiefs game, maybe.
Wolf.
But who knows? Maybe not. I might drop the ball on that as well. It's pretty much like the takes on Tomlin. One day he's a Hall of Famer, the next day he's riding the rails out to, out on the B&O Railroad.
We were about that life too.
All right, until 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Please don't forget about us. We'll be back. Keep listening to your Hall of Fame, maybe greatest of all time, coach? I don't know. Okay, keep listening.
Be their best selves. That's going to be required.
Stay in school.